Marcus Torgerson, warrior shepherd, author, speaker. It's okay to stand up for yourself, reclaiming your power through self-defense. I'm thrilled to share the incredible insights from our latest episode featuring the amazing Marcus Torgerson. If you've ever wondered how to overcome fear, build self-worth, and develop a mindset that deters potential attackers, this episode is a must listen. Marcus is a self-defense expert who empowers individuals affected by violence. He brings over 45 years of experience in martial arts and self-defense, and his wisdom is both practical and empowering. But he advocates for practical self-defense techniques over traditional martial arts. The discussion covers societal conditioning, especially women's responses to threats, the psychological aspects of violence, and the responsibilities of carrying weapons for self-defense. Marcus underscores the necessity of training and preparation to handle real-life confrontations effectively, promoting a proactive response and approach to personal safety. Here are the key takeaways from our conversation. Overcoming fear, building self-worth, practical self-defense. Marcus advocates for simple, replicable movements that anyone can learn, focusing on mindset and physicality rather than traditional martial arts. Societal conditioning. We discuss how societal norms, especially for women, often discourage self-defense. Mindset over techniques. Responsibilities of carrying weapons. If you choose to carry a weapon, regular training and understanding the legal and emotional consequences are essential. Mother's instinct. Marcus uses the analogy of a mother protecting her child to illustrate the innate strength we all possess. Violence as a tool. He explains that violence itself is neutral. It's the intent behind it that matters. Good people can and should use violence to protect themselves and others when necessary. Domestic versus predatory violence. Marcus distinguishes between different types of violence and stresses that domestic violence can affect anyone, regardless of gender. Marcus's passion for helping others and his unique perspective on violence and self-worth will leave you feeling inspired and ready to take action. So tune into this powerful episode and discover how you can transform your mindset and take control of your safety and self-worth. Let's empower ourselves and each other to face life's challenges with confidence and resilience. You can find Marcus at the show notes below. Click on the links, marcustorgerson.com, and on Instagram.com/Marcus Torgerson. Thanks for watching. I'm Damien Porter, former New Zealand Special Forces operator, subject matter expert from HowNotToDieGuy.com. And you're listening to my Straight Talk Mind and Muscle podcast, sponsored by State, the ultimate daily formula for optimum hormone health, stress management, energy, and performance. 100% natural and clinically proven ingredients. Provides everything you need to raise your game in a convenient, gut-friendly capsule. And my new sponsor, Michael Mason of the Mason Survival Protocol. Links for my former shows are in the show notes below. Thanks for watching. And we're live. Welcome to the Straight Talk Mind and Muscle podcast. Welcome to my guest this morning, all the way from the United States, Marcus Torgerson. Marcus, great to see you here.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you putting me on. I feel very honored.
Gosh, it's always nice to have a chat offline first, and your smile just lit up my day. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this one.
Right on. That's good to hear. That's very good to hear.
So your website's awesome. I think we're connected through different people. I saw Clint Emerson, who's been a guest on the show, has had you over, and just our sort of circles, I think they're overlapping. But gosh, I'd like to introduce the listeners in your words on what you do. Before this, they've heard the show notes and they've seen the show notes, so full introduction and links there and things. But what is it that you do?
Well, now, as of this moment, I put on workshops that are basically, I call them gateway drug workshops. My purpose is to show people who have been impacted by violence, or, as you know, are more than likely going to be impacted by violence. My job is to show them that violence has no power, to not be afraid of the fear that runs through their body. And I give them some movements that are easily replicable, easy to teach, easy to do. it's really working on the mentality and their movements. And the purpose of it is just one, to break the fear of them. And the goal is that they'll be so interested afterwards at how easy it is that they'll be likely to go to Muay Thai club or a Krav Maga club or a Jiu-Jitsu club, something that changes their lifestyle from, I don't think I can do it, all the excuses, to, wow, you know what, Marcus did this super easy. I'm not so afraid as I was before. I should probably invest more into this. So that's what I'm doing now.
Awesome. And, for the listeners and the viewers, in reality, an encompassing thing, but it doesn't, I almost call it a marketing term, self-defense, in any form, shape or form, not being a sport is what you're talking about when you talk about movements and so on there.
Yeah. And, I've been in this, like, I've been in the martial arts, combative, defensive tactics, fill in the blanks market since I was 10, so like 45 years.
Yeah, wow.
And there's one constant, and that is the fear and lie that I can't do fill in the blanks.
Yes.
And meanwhile, the enemy is sitting over there going, good. I want that person to have that victim mentality of they can't do it. They're afraid as soon as they see me. And it really doesn't matter which discipline you take. Now, obviously, if you're a Tai Chi master and you're going against a street thug, then, well, yeah, you're not going to do too well. But generally speaking, as you know, the person that walks just a little bit with their head up a little bit more, basically, they're not lambs, right? If they can just walk a little bit with not arrogance, but just, I'm not worth the trouble. And that's all I do, is I just educate people on how it is. Like, the term that I use is be a nightmare for bad guys. And it really actually has nothing to do with personal protection. It has to do with more on the inside. But the idea is, I want you, or the person training, that when predators are staring, as you know, they look, yes, yes, no, pain in the ass, no, yes, yes. I want the pain in the ass.
Yeah.
I want them to say, forget it, because there's always going to be a victim for them to abuse. And I just don't want it to be anybody that I work with.
That's great. Your mentality is brilliant on this, and but the principles you're taking. You haven't talked about rules, you haven't talked about sports, but you did intimate, I'm almost paraphrasing there, how about we teach you something you can do and will do, and then you can go and learn some cool, fancy moves, because so many, and if we look at guys tend to do the sport of whatever it is, whatever name, it doesn't matter, jiu-jitsu, kung fu, karate, boxing, they do the sport and then they realize, oh, actually that may not work, or I may need to do something slightly different. But out of it all, Marcus, you taught what I teach and what some of the other people I've had on the show teaches. You have to be able to switch it on. It's the on switch. Doesn't matter if you're a 65-year-old grandma who's never taught before, and this has been written before, a 65-year-old grandma, a high school teacher, she can switch it on at that one time when she has to save a kid's life. And that's the difference between sports and training all your life and what you're teaching people in one little gateway workshop, which you spoke about.
Yeah, I think something that, and it's men don't have this as much as ladies. So if there's to ladies listening and you're wondering, well, I'm not sure if I can do it, I'm going to give this analogy. Everyone has someone that they love, whether it's a child, grandchild, niece, nephew, whatever. And I want you to picture that child at about 4 years of age and holding them in their arms. Now, when I threaten you, obviously a woman's going to be like, no, don't do it. And there's a big martyrdom situation going on. My worth isn't enough. But if I grab that child, and please, I'm just saying words, don't attack either of us afterwards. I grab that kid and I punch that kid in your arms 15 times and shatter all the bones in his face. That woman will become the epitome of violence. If a woman will have the same veracity of anger towards someone when it's just about themselves, their own worth. If once women, men as well, don't get me wrong, men have value issues as well, but when they can see that their worth is so important, then they're a pain in the ass to bad guys, because it's just not, and I need to make sure we qualify. Domestic situations, rape situations, completely different situation. Please don't mesh them together. But in general, violence sits there and looks for the easiest prey. So don't be an easy prey. Have some self-value, some self-worth, some I'm important. And before you know it, you're walking differently, you're eating differently, you're joking, you're laughing, you're not as miserable. You're generally happier, because when you look in the mirror, you're not comparing yourself to other people, you're not destroying yourself. You're like, well, you know what? Yeah, I'm okay. And
Gosh.
that's half the battle.
Gosh, there's a bit to unpack there, and I'll go back. I've just written some notes, but that's amazing, Marcus, because you've summed up the special forces mentality, and I don't know if that's your background, but when people meet us, they're like, "Oh, you're not what I thought," because we don't walk around beating our chests. We're very confident, but we don't walk around showing that. We're just like, yeah, we know we got this, and you've just nailed it, because that's what the mum, the female, that lioness has versus the zebra mum. That's quite stunning to me that you summed that up so well.
It's easier when we start bringing in children, because
Yeah.
children are the one thing in our societies, men and women, that are off limits.
Mm.
You can see men killing each other, they have no problem with it. The minute that a man kills a child, look at it doesn't matter what jail system you have on the planet, the ones that have the worst time in jail are pedophiles and or anybody who beats women or children.
Mm.
If the prison system can see that, and our non-prison system, just regular people, are catching on that, yeah, kids are off limit. Women, not a good thing, but they're less sensitive about that than when it comes to children. Children, nobody is allowed to come to children. Doesn't matter who you are.
Now,
So as a society get into protect the children and work on ourselves, well, then the enemy has no chance to infiltrate, or less of a chance.
you're so right. I also love that you use the word enemy, because that's the way I look at it. I'm just going to reiterate your point there with the children. I spoke about this in a show a couple of weeks ago. We've taught elderly people, and they were actually in the couple of decades I've been teaching, they were the best course. It was quite interesting. But elderly people, they did the fawning that you spoke of. You didn't use the word fawning, but that's for the listeners. You got fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And fawn as a female will supplicate and try and, oh, it's okay if I do this. And they're trying to do this fawning over the attacker, over the enemy. The first hour or so, these very wise, because they're old, they're 60 to 84, both sex people. They were like, oh, but what if I just do this? And I wouldn't want to get in this situation. We're like, yes, we'll get to that. You're absolutely correct, but we need to teach you worst case. But what was interesting, they weren't turning it on, Marcus. And then in the second session, we did 4 hours in the second session, the second hour, second week, I brought along some teddy bears. I threw the teddy bears at them, right, this isn't your purse. This is now your 1-year-old grandchild.
Yeah.
And they were animals. They would turn the kid away and palm jab, all the right things. And you are so correct. That's when you turn on, when you're protecting someone else. And I wished, just as you said, to be able to teach them to do that for themselves. And of course they did. We turned them to switch it on for themselves.
Yes. It's just a door that they have closed because society, not even society, just their upbringing, especially with ladies, they're taught, they're conditioned for the most part. Forgive me, ladies, for being overgeneral, but good girls don't fight, good girls don't do this, good girls, blah, 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 blah. And it's only when you're protecting your loved ones that you can let that out. And that's the enemy is banking on that. And we just can't let that happen. Men could learn to use some of that as well. The truth is we pick women, men. Violence doesn't discriminate. There's no age, gender, like everybody gets impacted by violence, and our reactions need to be on the same page. Man and woman reacts the exact same way. Protector, they say a man is a protector and the woman is blah, blah, blah. And there's these labels. And I call bullshit, because there's women out there that are phenomenal protectors. They're great moms, great aunties. And there's men who may or may not be that, might not be their 100% gift. They may be support system.
Yeah.
Right. who cares if you're laying down suppressive fire and you're doing all these things, but if you're being violent verbally, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, brutally towards the enemy, who cares who's in front and who's in back? As long as you're all moving forward in aggression, it's a win. And then creating an opportunity for escape. This is the one thing that most of I wouldn't say my people have a hard time with, but in America there's this this lie that's been told, well, I conceal carry, or I have a knife, I have a bazooka, I've got whatever, I'm good. And the truth is you're not. And we should always create opportunities for escape. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are. If you can, I mean, obviously you don't want to leave your, 90-year-old grandmother on the corner and be like, you're on your own, granny, I'm out of here. But for the most part, create space to create opportunities for escape. And it's not rocket science. Get the ego out of there, which is just a big fat liar. Get him out of there, do your job and get out. And then the adrenaline dump and the pee in your pants and vomiting and all that stuff, just know that it's natural.
Gosh, again, so much to unpack. But that's what we do as bodyguards. What we do is when you're protecting people. Gary Fahey, the former head bodyguard for Kevin Rudd, the Australian Prime Minister, former team head, he stated that the bodyguard's job is to run and hide. You run and hide with the protectee.
Mm-hmm.
You just touched on something there. This false. I've been calling it false sense of security the last few days after Bondi and Sydney and the crazy stuff that's going on. But these people that conceal carry, I got sent this video, I'm sure you did the last few days, of this tow truck driver being run down. And so paint a picture for the listeners. This tow truck driver's got out of his tow truck in the middle of the road and somebody's gone to carjack him. He's pulled a gun. He's put 4 rounds. I think I only heard 3, but the police said 4 rounds into the bad guy, or 4 rounds at the bad guy. I don't know where those bullets went.
I don't know how many connected,
Yeah. And then 15 seconds later, the guy gets run down and cartwheels and gets killed. Ego and false sense of security. False sense of security, this guy had a gun out. It didn't do anything. And then his ego, why didn't he just go to a better position? Because that false sense of security, that lie, you use the word lies, of I can rely on this little thing with little bullets, that are great in the hands of someone that knows how to use that tool from the toolbox. That got him unalived, and it was really sad to see. There was so much that it was almost what does that show? Seconds from Disaster. It was almost like that. You could see it start to happen.
Yeah, and like I'm in America and I love this country, and I'm very two-way, very pro Second Amendment. Everybody has the right to protect themselves. Nobody can tell you that you can't. I just want to caveat that when you're talking about the responsibility of possibly taking someone's life, you better be training on a regular basis, dry drilling, making sure you're, all the things that come with that. And it doesn't matter what the tool is, whether it's a kukri you got from a Gurkha as a present, or or a frying pan, whatever it is, you better be able to use it, and use it in the correct manner at the right time, and use the right amount of force. Now, these are all things that happen in what, 3, 4, 5 seconds?
Yes.
Right? We're talking snaps. This is why when people come to me or to anybody that I'm around and they're like, well, I've got this and that, and I want to use this. I'm like, okay, draw it now. And they're like, oh, they're fumbling. I'm like, dude, you're in a safe environment. You couldn't even draw it. No, it's not meant to embarrass them or shame them. It's to just bring them to the reality that if you're going to carry something that is a force multiplier, one, you better be really 100% sure on that you can use it in its proper manner, and understand that psychologically there's a lot of stuff that comes after that.
Yes.
You're going to go to, in America at least, you're going to go to jail. Right? Regardless whether good shoot, bad shoot, whatever, they're going to cuff you. You're going to jail. You're going to have to spend $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 to prove your innocence. Right? And you better pray that it goes the way it does. And lastly, the most important part of all of it is, they say, know your background, right? 4 rules of firearms.
Yes, know what's behind the target. Yep. Because
my worst nightmare is I shoot, and let's say I wing them and it goes into a child.
Yes.
Like that, I wouldn't make it. I'm not pro-suicide. I'm very anti-suicide. I wouldn't make it. Having that child's death on which is why being a hands-on guy just makes more sense to me, because I don't want to say control, but I can negotiate what's going to happen to some degree.
Yeah, you're controlling the controllables. Yes.
Yeah, to some
Yeah.
degree. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I just want to go back to the females that we spoke of there, unpacking some of those things. Tony Blair is quite famous for his research from interviewing victims of assault. And one of the sort of quotes that is powerful is just about every one of the females that he spoke to that's been a victim of any kind of confrontation, they all said something to the words to the effect of, I knew something wasn't right, but I wanted to be polite. I knew something wasn't right, but I didn't want to say anything. And that was the words you were saying before. They've been trained not to do these things.
And we have a sixth sense, right, brother? We have a sixth sense. That is a God-given thing. We all have it. And the women, just as he has stated, and you've learned in all your experience, all of us have, if your body is screaming something's not right, it's something innate inside of us. Now, men don't, we have it and we don't listen to it because our egos are usually significantly larger than that. But regardless of whether it's ego or I'm not sure, I don't want to offend or any of that other nonsense, we've been given the gift of listening to our internal clock being like, no, 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 or whatever. I unfortunately, as educators, that is something that at some point a person has to go through a negative, hash that out, and come to terms with it so that it will never happen again, which is, I don't wish that on anybody, but.
I agree. And more importantly, I love it when they go through it in a 4-hour beginner's course with me. I want the tears and I want the screw ups to happen with me in a nice, safe environment, gradually escalating up in stress with a safe person in a safe environment. I want them to experience it there so that it's less likely to happen on the day. And that's the point of what you were teaching that guy who can't draw the weapon. You're teaching exposure. Graded exposure under stress so that they can learn those skills and actually apply them if and when they need it.
You know, it's been said 400 million times, and I think they were saying it in the Roman Colosseum, better to die 1,000 times on the mat and live one time on the street, right? Make all your mistakes in the training environment so you don't make them, or you don't make them as severely as you do on the street. And again, ego comes into play. Anybody that's awesome on the mat, I have questions, right? Like if they're so good and they never make mistakes, I got a little twitch when it comes to that. There's a problem there. Big problem.
Now let's talk about mistakes and on the street. The Bondi shooting in Sydney, stabbings in Sydney, they're quite unique because I don't know who did it, but they leaked all the CCTV footage immediately. So let's talk about what actually happens under a stressful situation. One male ran away and he couldn't even run. He seemed like a healthy individual, seemed like he was not obese or anything. He couldn't physically get his feet underneath him. He fell and tripped and fell over and then got up. Now, I'm not sure, but I'm sure he's run many times in his life before. But under stress, this human couldn't even do the basic thing of running. And I want to talk about how badly, how crazy things go wrong. You practice it perfectly on the day, but in special forces, we rehearse. So when the thing does go wrong, we can then adapt and overcome. But when it's a surprise, and that was a hell of a surprise, this dude couldn't even keep his feet underneath him.
Yeah. And I can't remember if he got attacked or did he get hit?
No, he managed to get away just enough.
Right.
So at the end of the day, and let's also talk about this, he's done everything right. He might be reliving the nightmare. Oh my God, I fell. No, he didn't get stabbed. He's awesome. But there's an example of how it can go wrong.
Yeah. And I think that again, I'm real big on nailing lies, right? Like the lies we tell ourselves in our training, the lies we tell others in our training, I think are important to be accountable for. You know, I can show somebody to do a striking movement 100 times. They could practice it a whole bunch of times. if they have not grown up in violence and their violence comes upon them, there's a whole bunch of moving parts in that you just gotta, you cannot prepare for perfection. You can train for it. Now, you brought up SF guys. All you guys go and run, when you're breaching and you're going through rooms. I mean, you guys, it's a choreographed violent dance with the barrier for if somebody makes a mistake, catching up. Civilians don't have that luxury, right? They just don't. The operation tempo, I like sounding like I know what I'm talking about. But their op tempo is I get up, I take a dump, I eat my breakfast, I kiss my kids, I go to work. I train, let's say they train 2-3 hours a night, 7 days a week, but their op tempo is, for the most part, mundane until violence comes. And this is why awareness, as much as situational awareness is just the most abused word in the English language, awareness is probably, I'd have to say, 95% of the battle, because you're able to sit there and, again, going with the intuition, adding up all the things, when violence finally does come, your success numbers are going to be a lot higher because of those very important variables of listening to your gut and being aware of your surroundings. Bad guys wouldn't have a chance. There wouldn't be any surprises. Think about bonding, okay? Now, I'm almost positive, I don't know, I didn't see all the footage and I wasn't there, but I'm almost positive that somebody saw the attacker and said, I don't know about that, man. And then just kept walking. Right. And, I'm not telling anybody to be a hero. I'm not saying you see somebody, you should go and pretend you're something that you're not. But awareness and being able, as you see them coming forward and going, and you see the knife coming out, screaming, giving somebody an opportunity to at least do something and not be on the full receiving end of that violence.
Agreed. Be the person alarmed for someone else.
Well, as a society, this is what frustrates me with the human species, is we like to segregate, we like to put a gap in between people, and the enemy likes to slide into that gap. They like the fact that there's Black people against white people and white people against Chinese people and all the different races, and there's segregation in men and women, all the bullshit that we got going on in the world. That gap is a breeding ground for violence, and the enemy can just sit there and they don't even have to worry about preparation. Now they can just do whatever they want without repercussions. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to last. The pendulum will eventually swing the other direction, and it's going to be a bad day for violence and for bad guys at that time. But for now, we could lessen that gap just by caring about our fellow man or woman just a little bit. They'd have nothing. They'd have hard targets all day long.
That's an interesting point, Marcus. You talked about care. So you led up to your point, which was caring for the other people around us, the other humans. And I was thinking, because I actually, by the way, I can't believe I'm an interviewer because I'm just an operator, but I got to think like 3 steps ahead. I was thinking, as you're saying it, well, let's look at World War II and 1960s and those people that came out. They're just a bit more realistic minded, but it's actually probably both. It's like they can take action and they're also thoughtful of other people around them. I think there's a lot more love around it in the past, and now, as you said, segregation. The person who's got the headphones on. Now this is really paraphrasing and really stereotyping. But I've had a lot of interesting interactions with the LGBT community. The person that's just got hate in their heart and mind and don't look at me, and they're tunnel visioning because of whatever segregation that's been caused. I think that in the past that just wouldn't have happened. You definitely would have had men being men, and they've done things. They've been workers. They've been in possible fights. They've seen those, so they're exposed to that. And then the women are looked after by those people, and the women are also much more protective of their young, because the men weren't around for so long because they went to war. And history has made us quite soft. If you look from, I'd suggest, Vietnam onwards, we haven't been exposed to that in this nice, safe environment. Now, people listening, you might be thinking, well, that's how it's supposed to be. But the fact is, and I stopped with the softly, softly, now it's tough love. The fact is that violence visited some beautiful people in a mall in Sydney in a horrible way, and a kid got stabbed as well. So that violence happens when you least expect it, and we can't have an excuse anymore. You have to take action. Yeah, and take action for others as well, is what you stated
Yes.
as well, Marcus.
If we root everything in love, so even the people that have hard hearts right now on this planet, I believe that, I don't know what this, I'm just going to pull numbers out of my ass. Let's say 5% of the population is truly evil. I mean, evil, evil. I'm sure you've seen your share,
Yeah.
where there's nothing in them but black, just evil. So that's 5% of the population. Now, the other dumbasses that are around doing violent things, they probably have the capacity for violence, but evil, and I just want to make sure we separate the two.
Yeah.
If we root everything in love, the people, if we do watch for other people, the cowards that are these people that are attacking, and again, evil, fighting evil is, there's no, you're not going to walk away unscathed. They have a mission, they're mission focused. But people who are cowards, who are beating on people and doing things just for whatever their reason is, but it's just for, if we as a collective really did watch out for each other,
yeah,
and acted with intent of, I'm going to save that person, and by saving that person, I can bring them in, which then I can save myself and that person. I just feel that we'd be a different community. And it reminds me of in Israel, I lived there for a year and back and forth for like 15, 16 years. And whenever the sirens would go off, you have X amount of time to get to a shelter. And I know this is everywhere in the world, but I'm just using it for my reference. I'm watching men and women scooping up kids that are not theirs.
yes,
they're running. They know they've got a time frame before they drop, and you're watching men and women scooping up 2, 3, 4 kids at a time. And people who you didn't think were strong enough to do that, and they're all running to the shelter because they understand that they're one community, they're one breed,
yeah,
going for safety. If we took that same action and just remembered that we're all human beings, we all bleed, shit, and cry the same, ain't nobody special. If we all did that, the enemy, the violence that would come with it, would have a far more challenging time being able to deploy that violence.
Yeah, I agree. And again, it's really interesting. I'm so honored to have guests from such diverse backgrounds, because you're saying something with different words, and I'm thinking things with different from a different angle, but the result is the same. My thinking about that, when I was a police officer at the police academy, one lecturer, they're all police officers, was saying, you police by consent. For instance, there's 5 million people in Western Australia, and there's 5,000 police. Work it out. They'll get crushed to death by 5 million people. You police by consent, but the reverse of that is what you're suggesting, Marcus, is that actually we're giving these scumbags, these 5%, whatever the number actually is, we're actually giving them the power, because we could crush them.
Crush them. Yeah. Evil's already lost. Like this. I think we've learned something in the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years, that people are very easily persuaded, and the idea of questioning things has been downplayed for a little bit. Again, the pendulum will swing and people will start to question things again. History has definitely shown us that. But if we put all the evil into a swimming pool, and then we took all the good people into the swimming pool, it would be ridiculous. But the loud noise gets the attention. So, and our media is, and this has been for decades, bad news travels fast, so we got to report bad news. If they just showed all the good things going on in the world, people would be like, wow, you mean we do not live in a crummy world. We do not have crummy people. Yeah, we've got outliers who are doing things for attention, and they get it, and that's good. But look at this man and woman helping this dog out of a tunnel, and look at this child saving the life of a friend off the tracks. Like, there's just so much of it. But where your optics are at, you're going to, and the algorithms on everybody's social media will go towards what they're looking at. I tell everybody, you don't know why you're in a bad mood? Go to your search bar in Instagram, hit the search bar and look at all the videos that pop up. If you're like, wow, it's naked women and fights, that's what you're putting into your brain on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So don't be surprised when all of a sudden you think everything is going to be about bar fights or violence, and you're watching nothing but CCTV or video cameras of everybody fighting on the street.
Yeah.
I think the world was a shitty place too, if that's all I looked at.
You're so right. And thank you so much, because that's the segue to why you're on the show, and not Greg Thompson, Green Beret instructor, not Michael Novito, 11 black belts, Special Forces instructor, Tony Blair, all these people. We all speak the same language, which is just phenomenal. And we have the same skill sets. You're here because you're a man of God. Now, to launch this part off, would you please, I looked on your website yesterday, the first thing on the website is a quote from you, and I put that up yesterday. Could I please get that quote from your own words?
Well, and the funny part is, as it has evolved in the last few years, and I can't even remember it off. Do you have it written down by any chance?
I do, actually. You give me 1 second, I will have it here for you.
Yeah, because because at that time I definitely did agree with it, and I still do. Have violence in your. What does it say?
I'll get it here. I just got to jump up on the story. And isn't it amazing what technology do? Walk with peace in your heart, love in your soul, and violence in your head.
In your head. And I carried that, I believe that for up until the last couple of years, and I still believe it. I just want to add one little bit, that when we think about violence, it's the capacity to do bad things when you need to.
Yes.
Right? I don't walk around anymore thinking about, okay, if somebody jumps out of here, I'm gonna hit them with this, that, or that, because the quality of life needs to be enjoyed. We're on here for a small amount of time. But love in your heart, love in your soul, with the capacity of violence when needed. Yes. And when your brain controls a lot of things. And I don't want to think, and I definitely don't want to go in the past to bring bad things in. But the confidence comes from the idea that I know that push comes to shove, my right thumb can go into an eye socket, cause them a bit of disruption, and they'll go back a little bit. And if I need to, my foot can go to their shin, knee, balls, whatever. Yeah. And I can run away. That confidence only comes because of the amount of mistakes I've made over my decades, and how things I tried didn't work, and I ended up on the ground getting booted. But my shift now is, again, and I've said it throughout this whole show, is if we're rooted in love, even the violence I deploy is still rooted in love, because I'm trying to, if that person is attacking me for whatever reason, which, I don't get attacked. I don't get in fights.
No.
Right? Because
you're not prey. You're not the prey.
I'm just not worth the headache. Now that 3 or 5%, they'll definitely give it a shot, but I'm fortunate that I haven't had that situation happen as of late. But when I'm rooted in love, and I try to tell people, I can hit somebody and still be rooted in love. I don't wish. That's why the getting the space and running away is so important, because I don't wish to continue on with violence. I don't wish to overstep it because I'm angry that they dare break into my area. I don't know what's going on behind that attack. Now, I'm definitely not going to bring what I'm talking about now with like Bondi. That individual, any individual that can stab a child, let me just tell you right now, that's evil.
100%,
right?
100% evil.
100% evil.
And he was hunting, I don't know if you got over the USA, he was hunting females. Yes.
Yeah. Which, it's funny how, not funny, wrong choice of words. It's interesting to me how that attack, and then all of a sudden we see a whole bunch of other attacks of men down in New York City walking by, punching women, specifically aiming women. Again, I don't believe anything's a coincidence. I
No.
don't believe in coincidence at all. So these attacks are premeditated and thought out and said, okay, we're going to do this. And from those attacks, I'm curious to what we're missing, because it's this hand's over here and you don't see what's going on over there.
Yeah, agreed.
I think that when just to stay on this for a split second, that ladies, I don't want ladies to walk around in fear. Now, if you say to a woman, you tell them this event, you're like, okay, I don't want you to walk in fear. They're like, have you seen what my life is like for the last 30 years? Women walk in fear all day long because of the fact that men are at times the way that they are, and the world is a violent place. It always has been. They don't have the protectors that they had in the past. And quite honestly, no woman should depend on a man to protect them when the bad things are happening, right? Nobody should wait. Like, what is it? When seconds count, help is minutes away.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. That's the old adage. Yeah, I need a cop. You never get one when you need one. Well, that's because, as you just said, there's not enough cops and a whole bunch of people.
That's right.
We need to be our own, what is it? Bodyguard, personal protection, whatever
exactly
words you want to use.
Tony Blair's trademark, be your own bodyguard.
Be your own bodyguard. Have you, I can't remember. Have you had him on yet?
Yeah, Tony was on about a year ago. Yep.
Okay, I love Tony to death. We're good friends, and he's old, right? Like, and he's like 100 years old. So I hope, Tony, that you're watching this, and we know that you were around when Moses parted the sea. So between women having to protect themselves, and I'm going to get back to this, rooted in love. My whole life for the last 3 years has been in a bit of a change, and many of the people who have trained with me in the past have stated, man, you don't even seem the same. You're not attacking us with screwdrivers anymore. You're not, you're not cussing us out every 5 seconds. And it's not that I just don't need to do that. I can get through what I need to say. Now, obviously, if I'm with a specific group, there's a certain language that you need to speak when you're with a specific group of people. But generally with citizens and regular people, me berating them or being like, do you know what violence is going to be like when it's like, I'm here to edify is the bottom line. My job is to edify people on what they're capable of. Now, I work a lot with adaptive athletes, adaptive individuals. And the one best takeaway I've ever gotten, and I apply it to every human being that I train with, it's not about what you can't do. It's about what you can do.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't care if you can't run away. What can you do to create the opportunity to get enough space where you're not compromised in running away? And it's been magnificent to watch men and women not dwell on what they can't do. Right? I've had people who are amputees with the left arm missing. I'm like, okay, well, I guess we don't have to worry about a jab because you're going to hit them with the stub.
I had the same thing with one of these elderly people, both shoulders relatively frozen, and we're teaching palm jabs, essentially a push away. And she's like, I could probably do that on the day, but I can't practice here. I went, cool. How about you just hold your arms here and then headbutt him and then bite his face off?
Right. Well, I love to bite the face off. And this is where changing people's perception of what they're capable of doing and what they're not capable of doing. Because I have to admit that when you take a chunk, not to get overly, well, this is the right show for it. You take a big chunk out of their cheekbone and their eyes are looking down, all they're seeing is flesh going around. Their receptors in the brain, all they're doing is what's going on. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, you got 3 seconds before they're going to come back into the violence.
Yeah.
Now, you're going to be grossed out by biting a chunk of flesh. However, you've also made a big dent in where it is in the power struggle of violence.
Yes, absolutely.
You've shown them what you're capable of. Yes, they're going to be even angrier. Yes, and they're going to hit you even harder. But you know what? At least you went out and gave them something to remember you by. And that, I think, is the hardest part, especially with females. Sorry, ladies, but it's a fact that if they get attacked and they do all the things that you and I would do in a situation, and they're both taken to the hospital, okay? They're both taken to the hospital. They've got 2 sets of doctors, and one set of doctors like, man, this guy looks like he's been hit by a car. And this set of doctors like, lady, what happened to you? and she can't talk because her jaw's broken. She opens up her hand. She's got an ear. She opens up her hand. She's got an eyeball. She spits out a scrotum. You know,
Yeah.
that guy, she's going to be in the hospital. But that guy doesn't have anything to hold over her. Her fear is not going to be existent because she knows she did everything possible at this moment, this time, right here. And that's, I think, the biggest word, and it's actually going to be the subject, the English. The title of my next book is Subject to Change.
Yeah.
Whatever you can do right now is right now.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's a different day. Maybe you'll do more, maybe you'll do less. Just deal with right now. Right now is all that matters for everything.
I think that's going to be the title of the show. Is you summing that up. Every time you say something, you're summing up with the same thing with different words. It's not about what you can't do. It's about what you can do. Special Forces, do the best you can with what you got right here, right now.
Yep. Yeah. There's something, you know, when it comes to SF guys, and it doesn't matter whether it's from what country, like at the end of the day, the breed is the same, right? Like I can take you and every other SF guy from around the world, put you in the same, you can smell SF guys or any tier 1 team. You can smell them. The methodology is always going to be the same. We're tip of the spear. We better sit there and do our job great. And as a team, now you guys do smaller units, but you know, as a team, we got to work together. Well, the only difference between, well, there's a lot of difference between civilians and SF guys, but if we could just get together I got to do the best I can do, and this person is doing the best they can do, and together, when bad things happen, we will work together. Any natural disaster, what happens? Man, woman, and child get together to help others. So everyone's got it in them to do the things, do the work. Fear is usually what stops them especially when it comes to violence, from acting. And we're just, my job, your job, everybody, Tony Blauer's job, everybody is to show them that fear is just a lie. Just ignore the fear. It's not positive. Go forward, help your fellow human beings, and good things will happen.
Thank you, Marcus. Wise words. I'd like to sort of unpack some things for the listeners that they may not be aware of. And I said this in a reel the other day. There are some really brave people out there. I do believe that. Well, I've seen them, but I'm not brave. But I do choose bravery at the right times. And sometimes it's choosing bravery in this second, and literally the next second, the next second, the next second. We don't go around there as a Superman. And when you're talking about fear, and that's why I'm coming at this from this angle now, you have to make a choice. You either choose to cower, and you choose to hear the lie that you're saying of fear. I have the fear. I just choose to turn that volume down. I choose to turn the bravery volume up. Yesterday, so I don't think guys need self-defense much, because it's normally the ego that I want to beat you up. I want to show you I'm bigger or stronger, and you can walk away. But yesterday, just outside my house at the bus stop, there was a big kerfuffle, and I knew it was wrong, so I had to go, and I tooled up. I put the belt on. It's got some things in it, and I got the phone for the police, and I got out there. And by the time I got out there, 30 seconds later, it had been a 15-year-old kid had been pulled up to in a car. A couple of guys jumped out, started beating him up. A car pulled over, and that car with his another two men, scared them off. So by the time I got out there, it wasn't me to choose violence. It was me to choose to help the 14-year-old boy out. I had chosen, hang on, I put the belt on. I chose bravery at that time, I believe. I'm not saying I'm brave. I chose the skill of bravery. And if I needed to, and this is going about 15 minutes back, I had the tool of violence in me. I was on a date the other day, and I was telling this woman, violence is a tool is an option that I have. And she looked at me like I was retarded, to be fair. But Jeff Nichols, a SEAL Team 6 guy, a great strength and conditioning coach, he said it the other day, you know, you have to be able to pull out the Incredible Hulk when you need him, put it back. And it's a tool. And I gave that tool, and you do too. I gave that tool to those elderly people, an 84-year-old man and his 82-year-old wife. They now have an option of violence. But if you don't have the option, it's terrible. But that option of violence is just a tool, just as talking is, or me hugging someone or whatever. It's another tool. Along with choosing bravery it's not brave to jump out of a plane. It's just you turn the fear switch down, you turn the bravery volume up, and that's
Right.
that's why you're here on the show, and combining with the love side of things, because we need to teach people that. Don't need to teach them jujitsu, don't need to teach them concealed carry, because that has to come first.
Yes. Yeah. I think the violence has gotten a very bad rap because it's only been educated to us in the negative, right? Oh,
Yes.
the bad guys do violence, good guys don't do violence. Violence is the same across the board. It's the intent behind the violence. And when
Mm,
you look at it, if a bad guy's doing bad person violence, well, the good person's doing good person violence. It's still violence.
yeah,
I'm still deploying something violent to them so they'll stop doing what I don't want them to do any longer.
exactly.
Right? The hardest part is the conditioning that human beings get from childhood. And parents, if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I'm not trying to raise some psycho, it has nothing to do with psycho. It has to do with, again, what is your worth, your quality of life,
Yes.
right? And the mentality of a bad guy, whatever that is simply, and they're not hard to figure out. They're looking around and they're like, you know what? That guy in a red shirt, I'm going to go punch him in the face. Why? I don't know, because I want to. Okay. Let's say it's somebody like an 88-year-old woman and they punched her and went down. Now, it's called bravery, but interceding and saying, whoa, that's not good. And pulling that guy and throwing him into a parked car and going to the woman, making sure she's okay, and getting others, hey, you, call 911. Hey, you, get over here and hold her up. And then reassess to where the bad guy is because he's going
Yes.
to take off. Bravery, what is it? Bravery is just being afraid 2 seconds longer. I think I just read that quote for whatever reasons a few minutes ago before I got on this. Bravery is fear turned inside out, right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
fear is crippling and negative. Bravery is the complete opposite of that, where you still have the same chemical dumps, still have dopamine dumps and adrenaline dumps and all the chemicals. You just choose to take a step forward as opposed to a step back.
You're exactly right. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Gosh. Well, it's getting to the time where I would like to ask you the one question I had actually set up. I don't set up
Okay.
questions, I set up an angle for the show.
Yeah.
And that one for you is, how do you rectify violence? And I think you've said the answer um, in different ways, but how does a man of God rectify
Mm-hmm.
that violence with God? Because again, in my day, I was taught religion of peace and so on. So
Yeah.
I'll hand that over to you to explain your position on that, and how it is in your heart and your head.
Well, now with faith, I believe in Jesus, and Jesus was about love and is about love. And I'm not going to take man-made religion and throw that out there, but it does say, if somebody cracks you in the face, you're supposed to turn the other cheek. Well, let's use the timeline of violence then. If they've cracked me in the face, obviously my awareness was crummy
Yeah,
and I didn't see what was going on, and I took that shot. Very quickly, I need to reassess, is there going to be a continued violence? Right?
yep,
So if it's just a slap, my question is, obviously, I don't need to go and throat punch them if it's just a slap.
exactly.
Now, this is coming from me. This is not the average person, just for me. The fact that I'm more upset that they got the chance to do the slap. I should have seen that one coming. But generally, should you be prepared towards violence, nobody has the right to hurt you. And if bad people, evil people want to hurt you, that's not cool.
Good.
And and God will have to, if I'm doing something wrong or if I said something, I asked him to talk through me on this whole podcast before I got on here. And I'm going to say this, that if you are a person of faith and you're using religion as a reason not to be violent, I do not believe that that's necessarily correct. God doesn't want his children hurt. And if he doesn't want his children hurt, then we need to, as we lean on him for faith, we need to lean on him to educate us that violence is bad. I don't care who it is, violence, because violence isn't smacking your child when they're acting like an idiot.
No.
Violence isn't me grabbing my teenage son by the back of the hair and being like, listen, you better smarten up or you're going to get some. Violence is someone who's chosen to do some act without my consent. Nobody has the right to do anything with my consent, and my job is to retaliate to the best of my ability in a loving manner. Look at the guy who just got stabbed. The priest, you saw that, right?
Yes,
The
yes,
guy's
we did.
preaching, and all
It
of a
was
sudden the
said
guy
to me
complied.
first thing.
Right? Now, allegedly the blade didn't open, and he ended up just getting bruised, and the blade didn't open because the guy put the crucifix out or whatever. And what did he do right after? After the guy did it, they got him and he prayed for the guy. Now, I don't know if I necessarily could do that. I don't know if somebody attacked me, if I went and threw a beating on him or whatever, would go to him right away to pray for his salvation. I'd like to think I would, but I'm not that enlightened.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm going to say this. If you're a person who's challenged with this, just remember that God loves you. And if God loves you, he doesn't want you to see you hurt. And he definitely doesn't want to sit there and allow enemy, evil, Satan, whatever you want to call it, doesn't want to let the enemy to have one up on you. So fight back.
Yeah.
And if you got that much of a problem with it, talk to Jesus afterwards and be like, hey, man, I didn't mean to smack that guy in the mouth, but he did throw the first shot at me. And you know what? That's God's job to judge you on that. But I say fight back.
And it comes back to where we sort of started around the 10-minute mark is these people won't protect themselves, but they'll sure as hell protect a kid. So
Yes.
if you could be a man of God, a woman of God, and protect the kid with ultimate violence, then why would you not do it for yourself? That
Amen.
is
Yep.
probably the crux of this whole concept.
Yep. And I believe there's a shift. I believe there's a shift because there's more people like you and I edifying. I know it's education, but they're edifying them that it's okay to stand up for yourself. And more importantly, if you'll stand up for others and you'll stand up for yourselves, either way, we're all standing together and we are a united front against the enemy. Like at the end of the day, it's good and bad. I got enough people that are like, I don't believe in God. I'm like, yeah, okay. Well, we'll see what happens there's no atheists in the foxhole, right?
Yeah, so true.
When you get a life-threatening situation, it's amazing how all of a sudden you find Jesus. My point is that I don't usually most people are like, well, I don't believe in violence. That's because you don't know how to be violent.
Yes.
I'll bet you if I gave you some quick tips on it, you'd have a change of heart because your eyes would be open and you'd renew your mind as to what your worth is. And you don't deserve to have somebody be violent to you in any capacity.
That is the segue into what I wanted to touch on there. And you said it around about the 20-minute mark. You mentioned domestic violence. You mentioned this is talking about, predatory violence, but it's not domestic violence. And if people have listened to this far in the show and watched this far, you may or may not have picked up on it, but I did, and I wrote that down because a bad guy picking his prey is incredibly different than domestic violence. And most of the physical abuse, so we'll just do it physical because we know there's all kinds, but just talk the physical abuse of domestic violence is perpetrated on women. And of course, the majority of sexual assaults are done on minors, I'll just use that word, and possibly females. I don't know the stats on that one, by people they know. So would you please give the listeners your take on, a mugging on a female versus domestic violence on a female? I'm not going to give you one point, but just what's your take on the differences of those two things?
Well, when somebody's like a mugging is coming towards you, generally speaking, they want something, right? There's something that you have that they want. And I say to everybody, give it to them. Everything is replaceable except you. You're not replaceable. So give it to them. Unless what they're asking for is something that you're unwilling to give, like give me your child, or, come into the alley and there's a secondary point, then that's never good.
No.
But when it comes to, and I'm going to use domestic because it's easier, husband, wife. And I need to say something. The stats for men that are beaten by women are higher than anybody knows because men never reported.
Wow. Yeah, I have
So
heard that, but you've looked into it more.
I have. And there's, countless men that I do in men's groups all the time. It's closed doors and men are like, yeah. And that's my point is domestic violence doesn't have a gender. A partner is being mentally, physically, spiritually, brutally, all abusive to their partner.
Yeah.
And it's behind closed doors and nobody ever sees it. And you sit there and you start making up excuses. I walked into a door, I tripped, I fell, I'm so clumsy. All the bullshit lies, and it doesn't matter whether it's a man or woman doing it.
Gotcha.
And the hardest part, and this is where shame, guilt, condemnation come into it. If you are I hate the word victim, but if you are on the receiving end of violence from a partner and you think, well, I can't get away because they're a psycho and they'll ruin my life. This is where that worth comes in.
Yes.
And I pray that people will see their worth, and that this is not living life. This is not the way that we were intended to live life. You're not supposed to wake up and be walking on broken glass because you don't want to do the wrong thing because that partner doesn't like it, and you're going to get a backhand or verbally berated about how useless you are. And I would ask you, if you're listening to this, whether you're a man or a woman, you're going through it, you probably don't have any friends because he's isolated you or she's isolated you. Find a way to escape. There are more than enough. I don't know necessarily how useful there are, but there are more than enough options if possible. And at some point, sometimes you just got to run with the clothes on your back, and all the guilt. Well, he or she would never do that. I think you're making it up. All that bullshit lies. Don't worry about any of that. You have value. Whoever's listening to this, you have value, and you are loved by God. And there's no way that he would want his children to suffer the way that people in domestic situations suffer. That's not living. So get up, get out, get safe, and you'll find you have more strength than you even know. Believe me, anybody who's lived through domestic violence has a strength that there's no metric for it. So you're not weak, you're actually quite strong. Let's turn that negative strength into a positive strength. And I am a big believer in God's ability to turn your mess into a message and turn your tragedy into triumphs. And don't stay one day longer.
That's brilliant. Amazing sort of air quote soundbite there, because none of it was about self-defense, and we know it's not. But some of the females, or sorry, no, some of the partners, you said, may be thinking, oh, I need to do this move to stop the thing, and you just straight into self-worth, which is psychology, which is where it starts. And then all the things that you gave up, all the options, and it's you need to leave. You know, you're better than that, and then you can turn that strength. You can grow that strength from the horrible situations you went through. But just beautiful to hear the outcome required, and then some of the tools that one person listening to this, that might have been the catalyst for change, Marcus. So amazing.
I pray it is, brother. I do. I really pray it is.
Yeah, thank you. Gosh, it's been lovely to speak to you. And we covered so much. I've got some great quotes there. That know your worth was beautiful. Standing up for yourself as well, and just so timely, coming off the back of what we've seen. It really got to me, this one, and I was so careful to remove myself from media, because I wasn't there in Sydney, so I shouldn't be traumatized by it. Anybody that's watching the media shouldn't be traumatized by it if they weren't there. Because I wrote an article for Soft Rep. I did videos on the France playground stabbing. And what I said was, before that happened, sure, you can be safe in a playground. You just look out for the weird guy or the kid not sharing. But now it's happened. You can't put your head in the sand. Now we're talking about a mall. Now we're talking guys, girls, tough love. The gloves are off. You need to step up a little bit more than we have. And really, for what you've been saying, Marcus, is step up not only for yourself, yes, know your worth, but for everybody else. And we can do something, and we'll do something. So it's been amazing to speak to you and get to know your concepts and so on. And I love what you do with the social media. You've done that so well. So you're really, really interesting and honored to have you on the show.
Brother, it's been a great chat. And like you said, if just one person, man, just one person can have a shift and change, because I believe everybody can change. Even when you don't want to, you can still change. And I just want them to live happy lives. Life's too short to be miserable, and definitely from a home standpoint. So I love what you're doing, and I think the impact that you're doing is going to not show itself right away, it'll be one of those things where, 5 years from now, you're walking in another country doing something. Somebody comes up and says, just so you know, your video on blank was the game changer, or was the final switch I needed to just hear it, see it, whatever. And those are the things when they say warriors for God and God's warriors for standing up and helping people. I know they picture Michael and sliding, like all these cool guy things. But the truth is when you're helping your fellow human being be able to stand in the face of adversity with not just a smile, but with some tools, there's no better. You can go to heaven with a smile on your face because God's gonna be like, not bad, not bad, good job. And that's really, at the end of the day, all I care about is I just want to get to heaven, and for God to be like, all right, Marcus, you did good, kid. You did good. Get in here and go see your friends.
Yeah.
So I think you're on the right track, brother.
Oh, thank you. That's beautiful to hear, and such a beautiful analogy as well.
Yeah.
I'll hit pause. We'll have a chat. Thank you so much for coming on the show. People have heard the show notes prior and they've got the links, but just at this stage, let's throw in where to make contact with you. What's the best point of contact for Marcus?
Social media, usually,
Yeah.
Instagram, I'm on a little bit more. Marcus Torgerson. I have a website, which is really just www.marcustorgerson.com.
Right.
And there will be an email that people can get to me, and that I'm really accessible. Everything, all my accounts are public. Everything's public. I full transparency. And if people want to reach out, I try my best to answer as well as or as fast as I can. Please show me some grace if I don't get at you right away. But that's the best way to get in touch with me.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you again for being so accommodating and coming on the show. You responded to my message, and it's been great to have you here.
It's honestly, I know a lot of people say this, but really the honor was mine, brother. It's my takeaways are a lot more than you'll ever know.
Oh gosh, thank you.
Hi, thanks for watching. I'm Damien Porter, former New Zealand Special Forces operator and former Australian police officer, and your podcast host. Please check out my new project at hownottoDieGuy.com, where I teach everything you need to know to both males and females, at-risk populations, schools, kids, and the elderly for self-defense, situational awareness, and all-round skills that every good person should know. Thanks for watching.